Hello and welcome back to the Honest Business Podcast. I hope you are really, really well. Things are quite exciting at May James. Currently recording this. We are about to enter into enrollment period and season for May's Accelerator, which happens twice a year. And this sparked me to record this episode actually, because I thought, you know what, this could help loads and loads of people about the topic I'm about to talk about today. And it came up whilst I was planning and talking through this cohort of Ms. Accelerator, which is going to be cohort 5, which is incredible. It's really exciting and really great that a program is going that far. So today we are talking through an underutilized secret of sustainable and consistent business growth. This is something that isn't given enough airtime, isn't kind of drilled into entrepreneurs enough, is something that entrepreneurs don't necessarily always want to engage with, don't necessarily love, but is something that when you look at entrepreneurs that are doing amazingly well and you look at people that are doing fab things and things that are consistently outperforming themselves sort of month on month and year on year, this is something that comes up a lot. So that thing is, drumroll please, is accountability. And don't switch off. I know some of you are going to listen to this and go, oh, here we go, and switch off. Please do not switch off. Please just hear me out and listen to what I've got to say on accountability. Because if you want sustainable business growth and you want to continuously grow your income, and maybe that's you want to double your revenue year on year, maybe you want to triple it, maybe you want to 10x, how much money your business makes. Accountability is that one thing that will allow you to do that and consistently do it and hold you to that kind of desire. And I know it's not always sexy and I know it's not the thing that everybody wants to hear, but accountability in your business is something that changes how your business runs. It changes how you operate. It changes how you are as a leader and as a business owner. And so what I want to talk about today is this idea of you are always shadowing a certain part of yourself, right? You're always kind of in this motion of, I'm moving towards a new goal, I'm moving towards something else. And that's a new version of yourself, yeah? That might not be an overhaul, but you're always kind of moving towards something. And then you're always in a position, yeah? You're always in a reality. And what often happens with business owners and entrepreneurs is that we have this dance that we play with ourselves where we're shadowing ourselves, our current self, but we're also looking ahead at our future self. And what many entrepreneurs do is they kind of stretch out a bit and they kind of expand to this newer self that they're working towards. But then they will inevitably slingshot, and I literally mean slingshot, back to their current self or their past self. And what happens, that's not like unusual, it's not silly, it makes total sense because they're actually moving back to this idea of where is comfort, where is safety, where makes sense, where have I played this game before, where do I know that certain things exist. And what I want to try and explain to you today and show you and guide you along this journey of is kind of understanding how the role accountability plays as a secret weapon in being able to get you to consistently manage to move forward, but more importantly, stay forward. And you might have resonated with this. You might have experienced this in your business where you move forward, but then you feel like you've gone 2 steps back, or you feel like you've gotten somewhere, but then all of a sudden you've slingshotted back 6 months later to somewhere else. And this is so common. And I've already said that, but I just want to really reiterate that this is normal and it's kind of almost like a process that naturally happens. And accountability is this beautiful thing that can serve you as a tool to help that not always be the case. And this is something that the world's amazing leaders, the world's sort of greatest minds use in their own toolkits to allow them to be high performing and to achieve amazing, great things. And I'm not sat here saying you've got to change the world and you've got to have this massive, huge vision. You might be a business owner that wants to make a certain amount of money, and that is totally fine. But regardless of what the goal is, this will help you 100%. And so I want you today to think about how much accountability do you currently have in your business? And what does that do for you? That might be through a coach, it might be through a team member, it might be through your partner. Where do you have accountability in your life? Where do you have it in your business? What does it do for you? many people, do hire a coach, or they hire a mentor, or they have somebody in their life and their business to kind of hold them accountable. But accountability can look like many different things and can hold many different shapes and forms. And accountability across different business functions looks different in different ways. And when we're talking about accountability, what we're really looking at is three key kind of areas. Well, we could say four, but 3 or 4 key areas. One of them is clarity, one of them is responsibility, one of them is ownership, and one of them is action. And those 4 things are areas where you need that for all of those goals that we talked about at the start. But the momentum of that and the consistency of that and the sustainability of that is what dictates how successful your business ventures are. And I think when we look at performance and we look at goal attainment, those 4 areas really sit heavily in business success. And that is, some of you might be listening, if you know my business well, you might think, oh, that's interesting, like you have something called year of clarity. And I'm like, yeah, I do, and that's for a purpose, because it sits in one of those areas. And Maze Accelerator sits as an accelerator, it's in the name, it's an accelerator. And the reason for that is that it's there as an accountability and an advisory program. And one of the reasons it's an accountability program is because that is ultimately a huge part of significant business growth. The advisory piece is on there because you need the advisory in order to have the clarity. So, and the action. So when we think about clarity comes from being held accountable to what it is that we are trying to achieve. Clarity comes from knowing, okay, I've got to get clear because actually I'm going to do X, Y, and Z thing. Responsibility comes when you take ownership. I know it's the next one, but responsibility comes when we think about, okay, well, where do I hold responsibility in making this happen? Where am I responsible versus a team member or versus someone else? And then when we shift to ownership, we look at, okay, well, what am I taking ownership of? And what is the ownership of a business? What is the ownership of a client's responsibility? Like, really understand ownership. And then the action piece is obviously the piece that I add on the end of the whole point of, when you are held accountable, taking action is a lot easier. When you're held accountable, action feels like a more attainable thing. Often it really helps with procrastination. People who are held accountable tend to be able to work through procrastination at a better, more effective rate. So when we are looking at sustainable business growth, if you prioritize accountability, you will get through more faster. You will be able to achieve what it is that you're setting out to achieve. The probability of that happening is massively higher than if it's not. And one of the most simplest examples I can give you of that is literally just the case of, if you know you're rocking up to a meeting, whether that's with an internal team member or whether that's with someone externally, let's just say a coach, you know you've got to say something. You know you've got to turn up and have some kind of agenda of what you're going to say. That accountability is a small type of accountability that can really help to make sure that prior to that time, you've actually thought about something, or hopefully you've done something. Now, if you have that level of accountability every single week versus having it once a month or once a year or once a quarter, massively helps with this idea of getting things done and getting things moving forward. The whole reason, so in Maze Accelerator, for example, there is an ability for you to have a daily touch point with me. So you can touch point with me on Slack Monday to Thursday. You can touch point every day, and you can actually, send a message any point of 24/7 a day if you wish to, but you'll get a response within that time frame. Part of that being there as an option is to say to people, okay, well, if you know that your accountability, you want a high level of accountability, you can choose to do that because you can check in all the time. Some people don't want, and this is the joy of Maze Accelerate, you get to choose the level of accountability you want, you get to choose how involved you want to be, you get to choose in how intensely you want to engage in the program. There's weekly touch points, there's monthly touch points, and there's daily touch points, and you choose to, which of those you're going to engage with. But understanding that there's this level of, okay, if I want to get somewhere and I want to get somewhere in a period of time, how do I make that more likely to happen? Well, one of the things you're going to do is around accountability and making sure that you have this clear clarity of, I know what I'm doing. And that's what Maze Accelerator provides for you. So the advisory piece of it allows for you to always know what your next step is. So at any point you're like, I don't know what's going on here, you don't have to wait for like another call. You get into Slack and you say, hey, May, I'm not sure what's going on here, or this is the goal we want to get to this month, but I'm feeling really lost and I'm not quite sure what my next steps are. And then bingo, I'm there and I can walk you through and be like, well, I think, what about this? Have you thought of this? Ask you some questions, give you some prompts, give you some guidance. That helps you to move forward. Now, the other piece that's important about accountability is it helps you to improve decision making. And there's a real correlation that's been proven between high accountability and quality accountability and improved decision making and improved quality of decision making. Now, decision making is the issue in most business owners. We're all indecisive. We're all always like having to make so many decisions every day, hundreds of decisions. It's really like decision fatigue is real. One of the things that will really help is accountability. And I have found this transformational in the business for me. So I have found this to be really amazing in the sense of having accountability forces me to make more decisions at a better pace. And if you're someone who struggles and knows that your business growth and the progress you're making is stunted by the level of decision kind of fatigue you have, or how slow you are at wanting to commit to something, or indecisive you are, this is something where I'd really suggest that you look at what the power of accountability can do for you. And the simple way to show that example is like a client can be a Maze Accelerator. We have a call, say, on a Wednesday, and they're explaining to me something that they've got to make a decision on. And one of the things might be that I say, okay, well, by tomorrow, put in Slack and tell me what your decision is. Now, on the surface, that seems like such a la-di-da thing. It's like, oh, okay, great, mate. I'm just going to type in Slack, like, this is what I've decided. And for you, that might seem silly. You might be like, well, that's so insignificant. The point is, it's not that I'm necessarily interested in what the decision is, although I probably am. It's about helping you create tiny little touch points consistently, daily, weekly, monthly, that force you to progress a skill set and build a skill set. And often when people come and work with me, they talk about, I am becoming a better businesswoman. I'm becoming a more equipped businesswoman. I'm already a great businesswoman, but I'm becoming an absolute kick-ass businesswoman. Like, people talk about that. And what they mean by that is they're building skills. They're building a skill set. Maze Accelerator is a formula and as a vehicle and is a tool that every single person in there is going to have a totally different experience, and they're building different skills along the way. And you get to decide what those skills are. They're not dictated by me. It's not a like curriculum where I'm saying you're going to build this skill. It's like we learn how to become better businesswomen through the various ways that I will challenge you and I will hold you and I will kind of question you and move you to different areas. But ultimately, it's a growth journey and it's something that you're doing that will improve many different attributes in your business. So I think something that might be interesting for us to do is just talk briefly through the idea of what kind of challenges can be faced by growing businesses and how accountability kind of helps. So one of the issues businesses often face who are growing fast is scaling operations while maintaining quality. Yeah, that's something that's an issue. So people might come to me and say, well, we've got to scale up the operations and we've got to scale up the back end and we want to make the back end of the business better. And I want to keep the quality there. I want to make sure that that is intact. That is a task that renownedly takes longer than people want. It renownedly is not the most successful task in the sense of people doing it in a way that they're happy with. One of the ways that we can do that is through having accountability. And I just stay with me because I know it probably feels a bit like you're like, what are you on about? Like, is this actually working? What I mean is, when you are scaling your operations and trying to maintain quality, that is a project that is going to be an ongoing project for a prolonged period of time. The reason that it inevitably doesn't work sometimes is because of that. And so what we need to think about is how can we increase accountability? How can we use accountability to make that an easier process? And I do that with people all the time, right? So a lot of my one-on-one clients, that's something we're working on. They've got to create systems. They've got to create various SOPs. They've got to change SOPs. They've got to shift systems. So there might be a period of time of 6 months, of a year, where our calls are literally focused on, right, okay, well, that project's going this way. How far into are you? Are you nearly there? Are you not? Where are you at with it? And consistently moving back and forwards on that. And I understand that that's not exciting and it's not very glamorous. And you might think, that's really boring. Why am I listening to a podcast on that? But I'm trying to, hopefully, if you can keep your attention and stay focused through this, is hopefully showing you how these tiny, what seem insignificant, silly things make such a difference to the long-term sustainability of your business, but also the growth that your business has and the money it can generate. Another issue is this idea of, how do you balance short-term objectives within a business with the long-term vision? That's something that comes up a lot of the time with scaling businesses. Yeah, it's like, okay, well, we want to create this in the short term, we want to make this happen, but we've also got this longer-term vision, and those are maybe potentially conflicting. Again, one of the ways that we can manage that and we can help move through it is being held accountable to it. So, for example, it means that, yes, we will talk about your short-term objectives, but maybe it's also about making sure half the time is spent looking at your long-term vision, figuring out how it combines together. But the argument therefore lies of, if you do not have the accountability, it's highly likely that you will not balance your short-term objectives and your long-term vision. And I know people want like the solution of that to be something really technical and really strategic. And sometimes it might be, but the majority of the time it's something really like boring as accountability. And that be the difference between it happening or it not happening. I also want to suggest to you to think about how accountability can impact your team. This is a huge, huge one. So often, if you're not very good with being held accountable, your team will also struggle with that, or your team will see that and use it as a point of weakness and be able, like, naturally their behavior will change to adapt to that. Most leaders, nearly every leader, wants a high accountable culture within their business. They want people to be accountable. They want people to take responsibility. They want them to hold responsibility. They want them to be autonomous human beings that sit within a business and provide value. That therefore means you need to breed a culture of accountability, and that accountability is good, that it is amazing, that it's productive, that it's useful. You need to then also get on board with that as a concept. And so making sure that you are utilizing that and figuring that out and being able to thrive in this idea of, I am able to be all these things to all these different people, and I'm also a representation of, I like being held accountable, is important. And one of the ways you like being held accountable is that you find an accountability method that works for you. You find a one that makes sense for how your brain works, and it's a one that doesn't feel like a chore. This isn't about us creating another thing for us to do. It isn't about us creating like another item. It's about us seeing like, oh, okay, this is a fun tool that I can use to aid business growth and to help me grow as an individual. Something that I think is also important for you to think about when you're looking at, how do we create sustainable business growth that it becomes predictable? Because that's also something people want, right? People love a predictable business. Once you build accountability practices into your business and into yourself and your performance as a leader, growth then becomes a lot easier, because it becomes more of like a game plan that you're like playing against, rather than this big thing that you're trying to tackle. And once you start viewing it as a game, it then becomes a lot more easier for you to be like, this makes sense. We're just playing a game here, and we're just going to continue playing a game for forevermore. And that sounds a bit funny, but it really, when you put that in your head, it like really helps to be like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm like gonna make this happen. So if we're talking about kind of accountability gaps, maybe you've listened to this and you think, okay, I kind of get this, I kind of on board with it, but I think I'm quite accountable. I hold myself accountable. Have a think about, where are there accountability gaps in your business? I could list about 10 for mine. Like, it's not hard to do at all. I'm sure you can think of ways where you're like, I could be more accountable in that area. I could be more accountable to me saying that I want to achieve this, but actually the likelihood of me doing it is Y. Like, list out all the ways that you do have a gap in sort of your accountability. And just think about what could the impact be if you manage to do all those things that you say that you want to do and say that you hope to do. And I know this is like, it seems a bit abstract, this, okay? Like, if you're still engaged and you're still on this episode, well done. And I just want to mention that, like, business owners can be in business for like 25 years and they still are only just engaged in this, and they, you know, they resist it, but then they are on board with it. Like, this is an advanced, although the concept's so simple and although it's like something that everybody needs, this idea of actively thinking about accountability and identifying accountability gaps is quite an advanced, a very advanced tool and technique, because although it's simple, it's kind of, people just don't want to do it because it's not an instant hit, it's not a dopamine one. But I would really suggest that you keep with this. So thinking about, you know, where are the accountability gaps? Where in the business is there a culture of not having accountability? Where have you created a culture where actually it's the complete opposite of that? And identifying those is really important. The final thing I want to kind of get you to think about with this is understanding, how can accountability feel really good to you? I want you to list out and write a think, like script out, journal on, why would accountability feel good? What would it allow me to do? How would it allow me to move forward faster? How would it allow me to complete things that I know don't get done? How would it allow me to tackle my procrastination? Think about accountability as this tool. And Maze Accelerator, as I mentioned before, sits as an accountability tool to help you progress further. And when people say to me, you know, how do people get the results that they get from working with you? There's a whole host of things involved in that. Yes, it's, you know, you could argue some of what I tell them is in that, of course, you know, it's this idea of having great strategy and understanding what your next steps are. Yes, it's them taking action, because ultimately that is so key. But there is also this real element of, it's simply a game of who is held accountable, who is constantly looped into what it is they're doing, who is it that like knows that, okay, I'm keeping moving forward, I'm making a commitment to my business growth. I said at the start of the year I want to make X amount of money. I'm now in the midpoint of the year. I've had a good year or I've had a bad year so far, but that doesn't matter, because I'm going to commit to making sure that the next half of the year is really focused on that goal. And that's as simple as it needs to be. People overcomplicate business, they overcomplicate success, they overcomplicate goal attainment. But ultimately, having strong accountability in place, going back to those things we spoke about at the beginning, those 4 key areas of clarity, responsibility, ownership, and action, those come through having accountability in your business and you as a leader being held accountable to that. And it is really, really crucially important that you learn what accountability looks like to you, what positive accountability looks like to you, what useful accountability looks like to you. And reducing the roadblocks of potential things that are going to come up to derail you is incredibly important. And that's something that I think people have to really look at and figure out in their minds, is this might be an optional thing to get on board with, but it's what is the value of that? Because you can argue everything in business is an optional thing. It's an optional thing for you to sell. It's an optional thing for you to take client delivery seriously. It's an optional thing for you to hire team members and create a really positive culture. I wouldn't view accountability as anything other than that. I'd view it is as important as that, of having accountability and being accountable to somebody. And the problem is, you know, if you use your friends or family for that, often that is not really very good accountability. Yes, it can be helpful to some degree, but if you are playing a game and you're playing the business game and you're playing a whole other different space and place from the people that are around you, having a level of accountability paired with solid high level strategic advisory service is a beautiful match made in heaven. And that is why I'm so passionate about Maze Accelerator. It's something that I'm so sort of adamant that people get involved with and they experience, because it can really help you to propel your business growth further and create more in 6 months than you have done for the kind of 5 years previous. And that's the ultimate reality of what it can be. The results and the outcome of what you can do in Maze Accelerator is unlimited. That's for you to decide. You get to come to me and say, right, this is what I want to do, and I'm going to leave in 6 months, and I'm going to have achieved X, Y, and Z thing. And that makes me so excited. When people do that, it is the most exciting thing ever. And so if you want to come and join us in Maze Accelerator, cohort 5 is currently open at the time I'm recording this, or will be opening when you're listening to this. I'm recording it in May of 2024, but in June, this is going to open for enrollment, and we kick off on the 1st of July. And I would love to see you inside. It's a small group. When I talk about accountability, this hasn't got hundreds of people in. It's a small group, so that I can, I fully get in your business. I understand your business. I understand you. I see where you're going. I learn how you work. And we come together and we work together to make sure that your business moves and can experience this sustainable, beautiful business growth. So feel free to check it out. You can go and visit www.mayjames.com/MA. They'll be linked below, and come and read the sales page, learn more about it. Come and ask me questions if you wish to. You can find me on Instagram. We can have a conversation about it. If it's not right for you, I will 100% turn around and say, actually, no, that doesn't make sense. But accountability is such an underutilized secret tool, and it's an amazing tool for entrepreneurs, and is something that you really should tap into and understand and learn and see and experience the true value that it can offer. That is all for today. I hope this has kind of been an interesting episode. Maybe it's kind of sparked some ideas for you. Maybe you're going to utilize it with your team, because what we haven't touched on today is the impact of accountability on your team, and that's a whole other episode, and it's a really important one. You have a responsibility to hold your team accountable, and likewise, it's okay for you to need someone to hold you accountable, and that can be me, and that's exciting. That's fun. But I very much hope that you go away and take some action from this. Take care, and I will speak to you soon. Bye.